Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nuganomics with David Tulis.
We are brought to you by P5 Preparedness, the prepper store on East Brainerd Road, and also by Carter Shooting Supply and Range, where you can be the man who, by God's grace, who prays and is armed, the armed citizen, the ideal of the Democratic Republic, which was at one time the state of Tennessee, and which was at one time the estimable republic of states, North and South, that united under the agency or under the auspices of the government in the District of Columbia. This is David Tulis, and we are brought to you by Choo Choo Barbecue, and also want to make sure you know about Eric Pelton, the accountant, who makes your numbers work. Eric is a CPA, has been doing accounting and tax returns for 3 decades, nearly 4 decades, and knows all the tricks. You can call him at 622-3156. That's 622-3156. We're talking with Mike Weeks. Mike Weeks is an entrepreneur just outside of Nashville. He's in Franklin, and he has 2 companies, and he is entering the Chattanooga Market at Harvest Groceries and at Whole Foods. Both of which carry his products. He got the Whole Foods arrangements in 2014, and when Harvest opened here in Hickson, he was on board there as a supplier. Mike, what is it that you supply through Southern City Flavors and your distributing company, Tennessee Flavors? What are you offering to my listener?
Well, I am a small batch all-natural food company based out of Franklin, Tennessee. Everything that I sell, I actually manufacture myself. I've been doing it about 18 years. For many years, it was a sideline business. And while I was in the corporate world, and 4 years ago, I jumped ship and said, it's been fun, but I'm going to have more fun with my own company. For Harvest Foods, actually, I have a total of about 60 items that I actually make. Harvest Food has several of my products. I have a line of barbecue sauces stemming out of me and several guys that used to cook in barbecue contests, and kind of how this whole business got started. I have an apple moonshine, a bourbon bacon, a maple chipotle, a bourbon liquor barbecue sauce. They also carry several of my pepper jellies, a raspberry jalapeno, a peach jalapeno, and then I also have just plain jams, several different flavors, typical raspberry, strawberry, fig jam, but I also make some really wonderful apple butter, sweet potato butter. And then one thing that I'm very known for in the Middle Tennessee area for years is I am the man that has the best grits in the world, as some of my customers brag on me. The grits are ground on an old water mill in Belvedere, Tennessee that still runs on water, made the old-fashioned way, all natural, no preservatives, and there's a big difference in real old-fashioned grits like that versus the grits that you normally will get at Cracker Barrel or Waffle House or something.
Explain to me,
the grocery store.
Mike Weeks, explain to me how a water mill makes it better. Mike, explain to my listener how a water mill grinding the grains makes the grits better. Is there a real effect, or is it something mystical and poetic only that you're seeing in that process?
Well, it's poetic and mystical to kind of watch it being done, because you're going back 100 years the way people ground corn and wheat and everything else that we used to eat, and for livestock with an old water mill running off of a creek. But what makes it so much different is, one, the grits are a little larger, not quite ground as fine as what, say, you buy at a local grocery chain. Also, because these are not processed or chemically processed to give them a longer shelf life, that grits that you buy in the grocery store or a typical grocery store versus a Harvest or a Whole Foods. The others have been processed to give them a long shelf life. Natural grits have not been processed in any way. And the way you keep them fresh is just keep them in the refrigerator or the freezer, and they'll last for years. It's the old-fashioned way of doing it.
We're talking with Mike Weeks, who runs Southern City Flavors, a kind of gourmet provider of foods in jars. Now, you're in Chattanooga every 2 or 3 weeks, Mike, to attend to your growing Chattanooga business. Is that right?
Yeah. Actually, I kind of have 2 markets down there that I'm developing and trying to get my brand name up, and in grocery whole food type grocery stores like Harvest, or all natural grocery stores like Harvest and Whole Foods. And then another market that is emerging for me is the liquor store market. Back in 2014, the liquor laws changed to where a liquor store now can carry other items besides wine and liquor. And of course, part of my products, pepper jellies, barbecue sauces, go along with parties and cookouts, and someone enjoying a cocktail. And so I have several liquor stores that have kind of branched into the gourmet food area in some ways. And since then, I've also listened to my customers. And if you always listen to your customers, they'll tell you what they want. And one of the things they were wanting was all natural olives, stuffed olives that go in martinis, and pickled asparagus, pickled green beans that people use for Bloody Marys and cocktail garnishes. And so I actually have a whole line of those now. And I do have some a few stores that carry my products down there, like Riverside Wine and Spirits, and then that carry that. And I have a couple of new stores that I will be bringing products to in February. JR's Liquor, who has a brand new expanded 15,000 square foot store, and Ronnie's Wine and Spirits over on Shaliford Road.
So your efforts here with Southern City Flavors and Tennessee Flavors, the distributing company that you have separately, you work out of local economy, but not the one here. You are in the Franklin, Tennessee local economy, south of Nashville, the kind of rich part of Tennessee where the wealthy music stars live and high-end executives live.
Poor side of Franklin.
Okay, you're on the poor side of Franklin. But now your efforts are you are an expansionist. You think, well, wow, I've got a great product, and every time you make a sale of a jar of sauce or jelly, you're pleasing the market, and there are more people who come. And so that's what you are expanding local economy in Franklin by having satellite outfits, having sellers in Chattanooga. So, and I bring that up because my listener, it keeps thinking, Mike Weeks, that he needs to be doing the same thing. He has an idea for a business, or he may already be in a business now. And so his goal is to find more people to serve with the great thing that my listener in his distinct field does. And you're doing the same thing, except we're seeing it sort of in reverse. You're coming into the Chattanooga market rather than my listener who's thinking of maybe expanding out of the Chattanooga market and expanding his operation. Mm-hmm. Well, do you have help of family in your work? What kind of colleagues and compatriots do you have in Southern City Flavors? Whom are your coworkers?
I use some part-time help, and then my daughters, I have 2 grown daughters that are the love of my life. They are also help me some. Of course, they have other endeavors, but they are my sounding boards on new ideas. And then my oldest daughter is in advertising, so anytime I get into advertising, I always brush it by my oldest daughter, Ashley, and then Rachel, my younger daughter, is in marketing. And so anytime I got a brand new idea about marketing, they're the ones that tell me whether I'm on track or whether I've lost my mind. So,
well, on the question of marketing, let me ask you a question.
Very close, so.
Let me ask you a question, Mike Weeks, on the question of marketing. Is there anything that you've seen in the past year in terms of in the area of marketing that might be useful for my listener? What might my listener be overlooking, perhaps in social media?
Social media is very big. I don't claim to be an expert at it, but yes, if you're getting into business, you have got to learn about Facebook, Pinterest, tweeting, and all that, because the younger customer base, that's where they get most of their information. That's anything they want to do. They first Google it or look on Facebook, or it's and a lot of times word of mouth between friends on Facebook is how you get new customers, to be honest with you. Yes.
Well, you tell my listener that you were in the corporate world for many, many years, for 30 years, and you had a business effectively a kind of a canning business, right? A canning and jar business on the side.
No, actually, I was my biggest part of my corporate life was in pet food. I sold gourmet or high-end pet food, actually, Hill's Pet Nutrition, Science Diet, dog and cat food, and managed big retail accounts for them towards the end of my career. So very, very tuned in to merchandising, shelf presence, what people look for in a retail outlet, and what sells your products at retail.
Well, let me ask you about investing. My listener has the wonderful fancy that he needs to keep his money in Wall Street. And one of my arguments here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Mike Weeks, is that he should divest national and invest local. That's what you did some time ago when you started your businesses. You took money that you had saved, maybe for retirement, maybe for buying a little farm somewhere, or a boat, and you said, I'm going to invest in Mike Weeks. In other words, in myself, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Actually,
is that a good idea?
Took, quite a bit of savings, and over time, tried to pay cash as I went. I'm a big believer in not going into debt on a new business, but pay for cash, and as you go, invest your time and your money that you have extra money to grow your business. I kind of believe that if you take your time doing it and invest in it, and not jump into where you're going deep into debt, you're much better off in long term.
So that's really a picture of organic growth of a new business, rather than borrowed growth or borrowed wealth that you can. When you have a big loan and now you need to start spending it, you tend to have maybe an overly optimistic view of the market, and suddenly when the loan proceeds run out, you've overextended yourself. That I think is a danger.
You can get overextended very easily. You have big dreams, and those are things that you got to have, and you got to have a vision and a business plan of where you're heading and where you want to be. But if you're doing that with your own cash, you tend to be a little more frugal at times versus if you have this pile of money that's all of a sudden borrowed and you got all this money, and then all of a sudden all that money comes due and you don't have money to pay it back. It becomes a very hard thing to deal with. Yes.
Well, Mike Weeks, I do thank you for giving my listener a couple of minutes of your time.
Mr. Leon, let those boys have a bud.